And then Tallulah, she goes, Verity, Tallulah began patiently. It's not your job. Right. He has to want to fix himself. Totally. I get that. He seems very passionate, though, right? I do like that in a man.
This girl took the red flags and made a dress out of them. She's like, what a beautiful color. It complements my skin. Oh, my God.
I'm Melody Carlisle.
And I'm Sabrina Bradley.
And this is Heaving Bosoms. This is the podcast where best friends recap romance novels and other kissing media that makes us swoon, snark, and refills our cups.
Whether you've read the book or are coming in blind, we'll lay bare every delicious scene and revel in the tropes and subgenres that make romance amazing.
All right, listener, strap in and strap on. Headphones are highly recommended.
Sabrina.
Yes.
I might have poison ivy on my face again.
Was this from like wood chipping or like weed eating or like doing something?
It could be anything. Actually, there's a specific section of my yard that I've known has been a problem area, and I haven't been dealing with it. And then I did maybe deal with it a little bit, and I think I might have gotten got.
Sounds like you dealt with it and it dealt with you.
I mean, and like, why my face? You know, why?
Yeah, that's a rough place to get poison ivy.
Yeah, it's on my face, and I think I have a little bit on my side, too. It's bullshit.
God. That is bullshit.
Listener, are you extremely allergic to poison ivy? If you
are allergic to poison ivy?
I feel yes. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm one of like the 85% of the population that has a reaction to poison ivy at all. And my reaction is robust.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sensitive, you know. Doesn't take a lot of poison ivy to get got when you're in this body. And this is after every single time, no matter what in my yard, after every single time I'm out gardening, I shower with a specific like poison ivy scrub situation. I wash my whole body in poison ivy soap.
Okay.
And still it's on my face and my side. Incredible stuff. Anyway, that's what's going on with me lately. Mm-hmm. Should we shout out some patrons?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Hey, thank you to everybody who's part of the Patreon. It seriously means so much to us. And I love the fun that we have over there. So, hey, thanks and welcome to Carmen L. and Kate M.
To Christina O. and Sarah W.
Alexandra B. and Imani.
Missy K. and Caitlin B.
Jennifer M. and Jennifer M.
Lois T. and Erica D.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Super excited. Don't forget, everybody, we are doing the Elizabeth Stevens author hang. If it's not this week, it's next week. I don't know. Keep an eye on social media. All I know is I'm already fangirling. Like,
hard. Like, I might die. Am I going to die? Maybe.
Yeah, August 23rd.
That's so
very
exciting.
Excited. I'm very
Oh my
excited.
God. Okay. We have to do a Patreon on the rest of this series, right? Just like a quickie, just like talking about, because Sabrina and I have both read every single book in the Shades of Sin
Hang on,
series.
Mel. Have you read the book that came out after this? Because guess what? It came out less than a month ago.
There's a book that came out after Avaritia?
Mm-hmm. Came out less than a month ago. It came out after you and I decided we were doing this book.
God bless America. No, I haven't read it.
It came up at the end of the book and it was like, hey, did you want to read the next book in the series? And I was like, son of a bitch, I'm already... God damn it, Heaving Bosoms. This is what happens. This is like, we've had a really good reading list this time around. And so I just want to obliterate everything in all of these series. And it's a problem. Oh
my God. It's NVIDIA is next.
Yes.
And it's Tallulah.
It's Tallulah.
It's Tallulah.
Yeah, she ends up with
excited.
Werner.
I just put it on my Kindle. Good job, Melody. Good job.
Oh my God, that reminds me. Nemesis Watch is still happening, Mel.
No fucking way. What?
They still have book 3. Give me the fucking book, Miscellaneous Random in the World.
Just hit the return button when you're done, you know? Just like hit the return button. Don't auto-return it. Be kind, rewind, or whatever. Be kind, return is really what we're saying. Take care of your fellow book lover.
I've already figured out the math, though. Whenever I have 1 day left on the second book, the third book will show up because it will be auto-returned.
Okay.
Which means I will start the second book 2 days before it needs to be returned.
Why? You can read the second book anytime.
Well, see, the problem is I have all of Maiden Lane out, which means I can just keep rolling through it. It just book after book after book after book. But like, if I read the second book in the Spy Master series and then have to wait 11 days for the third book, I might cry, right? So like now, I'm just rolling through Maiden Lane. And then the minute...
Me too.
2 days before the third book comes back to my library, because I'm the first person on the hold list for the third book. 2 days before the second book goes back, I'm reading it. And then 1 day before the second book goes back, I get the third book. And then I'm going to read the third book. And I have not given back 4, 5, or... Well, I haven't gotten 6 back yet.
You gave back 5? But you'll have that back.
I gave back? Yeah, whatever. Here's to hoping. All I know is I'll have at least 3 books that I can just obliterate, okay? That's what I need.
Did you know that one of the heroes in the Maiden Lane series is a gardener? Because
how far into it are you?
I think like 10 books. Actually, no, I just had to skip 10 and read 11 because I didn't have a credit. I had to wait until tomorrow to get my credit, but I couldn't stop reading them. And so I skipped 10 and went to 11, Seducing a Scoundrel. And then as soon as I get my credit, I'll read 10 and then I'll go back to 12. So... She's so mad. Were there mild spoilers for 10? Yeah, but that's fine.
No.
It was either that or stop reading them? Question mark.
See, I've had books 4 and 6. Like I held on to books 3 and 4 for like what 12 days. And I didn't skip. I just don't. You and I are just very.
I don't understand your choices. You don't understand mine.
I don't understand.
I get it.
And you know what? Between the two of us, we make one really fucked up reader. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking,
who loves this series, Shades of Sin?
No fucking kidding. Okay. So I don't know if you got this. Is this an audiobook or did you have to eyeball read this?
Eyeball.
Okay. Did you read the dedication?
No.
Okay. So, if you haven't guessed, listener, or haven't put it together, this is specifically Avaritia by Colette Rhodes. The dedication in this book is to the Airbnb host who said, but you look like such a sweet lady when I told her what I was working on. I think my favorite thing is that Colette Rhodes was just like, tits out. I'm working on a monster fucker romance to
and
a
this
random
would include
Airbnb.
Tentacles. Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. So when I was looking through the beginning of the book and it said trigger warning and it had tentacles and somnophilia and primal, there were a lot of checks written and every check was cashed. Every check was cashed.
Oh, yeah. She did a promise of the premise and she did not mess around, is what she did.
Yeah, and also, listener, if you are a monster fucker, this book is for you. Because this character is a monster fucker, hardcore. So we open, right? So we open in a prologue 10 years ago. And the main character, Verity, has this awful boyfriend, Sebastian. We have to give him a nickname. I can't call him Sebastian this whole book.
I know. I mean, can we just call him ex-boyfriend?
Her ex. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, her ex.
So,
because he's not a Sebastian.
No, he's not.
He is called Sebastian, but he is not. Unless in 5 books, he decides to come over to the Shade Land and get with one of these Shade ladies. And then he might be a Sebastian later on. But right now, he's not. He's just named Sebastian.
Her ex in this book can get fucked.
Yes,
he doesn't deserve a Shade.
Listen, Colette Rhodes has talked me into a lot before.
You know what? I can't even talk, though, because, like, I get talked into a lot, too.
Yeah.
I do love Deos, and, like, that was a hard redemption. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wasn't.
By Emma Hamm.
You want to talk about
by
a Sebastian?
Song of the Abyss or whatever.
You want to talk about a Sebastian?
Oh, I'm sure. He's a supersized Sebastian. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, listen, we're in this prologue, and she is in an emotionally and intellectually abusive relationship. And she does not know it. She's 22, and she is dating this guy who's in law school. And he is a mama's boy to end all mama's boys. And don't get me wrong. I love a boy who loves his mama. You know what I mean? But when your mom is an emotionally manipulative narcissist, and you can't see it, and you're still a mama's boy, then we're getting into really, really dangerous territory here, including but not limited to him talking to her about bringing his mom on their anniversary trip.
Yeah.
The fuck? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and she agrees to it because, like, what else is she supposed to do? She's like, okay, maybe we can do a weekend with just us to celebrate her at some point, and, like, here's a surprise for you, Verity. You're not getting that weekend with just Sebastian. His mom's coming to all of the weekends. Like, I don't know why you think that you're ever going to get a weekend alone with your boyfriend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, like, he's so condescending. She asks about his class, and he's like, it's not like a true crime podcast. He doesn't say that exactly.
That's the gist, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really complicated thing that I don't think you would understand. And she's like, oh, I really should have worked harder at how I asked him about this thing because I really am interested. I'm just like, this poor woman.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is her mom is
The best thing happens.
His mom is waiting for her at her house. Long story short, she, on her way back, when she finds out that his mom is waiting for her at her house, she's like, oh my fucking God, I have it so well hidden though. Like, there's no way she's gonna find it. Lo and behold, guess what? Her ex's mom does find the thing. She gets upstairs into her bedroom because his mom has no sense of boundaries, went into her room and snooped around and
goes spelunking.
And found all of her, oh my God, our heroine has a tentacle specific monster fucking fetish. And so she has a gazillion tentacle dildos, and the mom straight up took pictures, sent it to the Shadowhunter Council.
Yeah.
And now she's kicked out of the Shade Hunters because she's sick and disgusting, according to them.
Yeah. So she is broken up with and then loses every single person in the network she's lived with her entire life.
Because she's a fucking orphan. She was in like Shadowhunter or Shade Hunter. It starts with a fostering.
Foster care,
this is her whole life.
And listener, just in case you're not super familiar with the series, I'll give you a TLDR of like the world. In this world, there are 3 beings that I know of who are sentient and important. The first one is humans, but they don't matter. They're just like muggles, you know? Then there are the hunters, and they are special evolutioned humans who can see these things called shades, who are beings from another world.
Another dimension.
Yeah. And they feed on human fear. So in our dimension, in Earth times, they they're just like wisps of a feeling. And like when they scare you, they get to eat and you run away. But the hunters can see them and they kill them if they kill them with silver daggers, and they're like very into it and very committed because way in the way back machine, the shades were not so great and they kept the hunters like kind of against their will because
cattle.
Human fear is tasty, right? But it does not satiate in the way that hunter arousal does.
Yeah. And the best part is, listener, just go read the first book purely for the fact that the entire first half of that book, it's an arranged marriage between we'll get into this in like a Patreon quickie probably.
Sure.
But like the first book, half of it, he's like, why is she still afraid of me? All of these things. And
every time she smells good, he's like, oh my God, she's terrified of me. I've done something wrong. Meanwhile, she's just horned up.
And then when they finally figured it out, like, boy, it is
on TM.
And it's hysterical though, because he's like, wait, all of these times you've been horny
into it?
And she's like, yeah.
Yeah. And so shades and humans are compatible to the point that shade genitals don't fit together, at least like in an MF context.
Mm-hmm. Because male shades have a knot, female shades have a lock. If you know anything about Omegaverse, those are going to be pretty familiar terms to you. But essentially, like, knot blows up at the bottom of the penis and like it keeps the vaginal. I don't know how to say this in a not
the vaginal
clinical
opening
way. Yeah. Like it keeps the vaginal opening locked onto the dick and it helps with like reproduction. And then vice versa, the female shades have a lock, which is basically their vaginal canal clamps down.
They don't expand.
Well, it also clamps down.
Yeah. You're right.
And so like if you lock on that knot, it's gonna be rough. But
it's bad.
But not always.
They can make it work, though.
They can make it work because read Tristitia. And
read Tristitia.
Oh my
it's
God,
so good. It's
Melanie,
the first shade book, listener. Sorry.
Melanie, I hadn't read Tristitia, so I had to read it to be able to read Avaritia.
Yeah.
It was so delightful.
Isn't it wonderful?
It's a grumpy
at the palace.
And like,
yes. And one of the guards of the hunter queen, and it's grumpy, and they get together, and it's amazing. It's so good.
It's adorable. So anyway, back to this.
Yes.
It's 10 years later. We zippy zap. And that's another thing. That's one thing that's really important to the world. There's a couple of hunters that have essentially left Earth for this new dimension because most of them weren't very good hunters and they just don't want to be hunters. And so they came.
Because there's a subset of the hunter population that like know that they're good for monster fucking and monster fucking is good. And so they spend their whole lives like trying to hide the monster fucking drawings that they do or like hide their menagerie of tentacle dildos from the rest of the hunters or whatever.
As an example though, like the third book is Austin and it's not even that he's into monsters explicitly. It's just that he doesn't want to be a hunter.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to be a hunter. And so, like, some of the human hunters have left Earth and they're living in the shade realm. So we pop in to Verity.
And they're bringing color to the shade realm. I'm so sorry. They're just bringing color a little bit because it's a black and white world. Oh!
So we go to Verity. She is a hardcore monster fucker. She's looking for her dream monster daddy. And we've literally opened up in a dream that she's having that is some pretty serious tentacle BDSM.
It's primo.
It is fantastic. By the way, Melody, this is one of the funniest books. I was literally laughing out loud so many times. It was nonstop.
Well, and it's really interesting because at least in the author's note, the part that I read, she says like she was really excited because the last two books have been very like serious militaristic sort of heroines. And she was excited to like take a hard left turn into Verity and like write somebody who's just ridiculous and whimsical and, you know, all the things. And so that's where we are with Verity.
Yeah.
She's she's feeling a little bit listless, though. She feels like she doesn't really have a purpose.
More importantly, though, while she's trying to figure out if she has a purpose, we find out, spends a lot of times having casual sex with shades in this realm because since the shades can't go to the human realm right now to feed, they're feeding off like stores of energy that are filled up from the people having, like the shades that are having sex with humans, because humans are basically battery packs for shades. And so she's
orgasms.
Like, and so she's a little annoyed. She's a little annoyed because none of the shades are willing to make shadow tentacles for her. I fucking love a heroine who's not afraid to ask what she wants. And she's like, why will you make me tentacles? And they're like, and then this made me laugh hysterically. Because she goes,
it's the same line. I know it is.
Wait, was that my job? Had I inadvertently gotten into sex work? I wasn't opposed to it, but it did feel like the kind of decision one should make intentionally. This book birthed a new tag, and it's sex work accidental.
Love it. Okay, my favorite line from this section is her saying that when she asked for tentacles, it says, one of them had told me it was beyond dated and unfashionable, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Tentacles were timeless. It's just like Verity.
I've never felt more seen by a character than I do by Verity.
I say that
about
much.
I say that all the time, but Verity is perfection. Oh, and then this felt a little bit like a call out melody. Oh, because she's talking about herself and she says, I was just Verity, a hodgepodge of vague interests that I wasn't disciplined enough to turn into hobbies, vain enough to care about my aesthetic, but not creative enough to do anything cool with it, and funny, but in a self-deprecating way that had a 50-50 chance of making people either laugh or get super uncomfortable. And I was like, well, goddamn Colette fucking Rhodes. Okay.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you describe 100% of the Heaving Bosoms podcast? How dare you? Ma'am.
You know what? Colette Rhodes, actually hit us up if you want to be our new brand ambassador that comes up with like just descriptions of how we live our lives. Because like,
if you need to pick our brains, yeah.
Honestly, though, that would be such a fucking honor. I've read every book that Colette Rhodes has ever written. I love her books, but I'm not mad about it, you know? But anyway, so, and then another thing, another time that so this is all in the first chapter, listener. Wait, like this book came in swinging and was like, are you ready to learn some shit about yourself? Are you ready to get told? Because... So there's a festival that night, and she's like excited because there's going to be shades from out of town coming in, and she gets to meet more new shades, and she's like, ooh, I can fuck a new person. And on their walk there, I don't remember exactly what happens, but Tallulah says something in response to like her being a little self-deprecating, and Tallulah's like ta-taing her, like mothering her, and Verity in her head goes, Tallulah knew I wasn't destined for greatness. I knew I wasn't destined for greatness. That weird looking spiky plant over there knew I wasn't destined for greatness. And that was fine. Some of us were solidly destined for mediocrity. It took all sorts. Ma'am. Ma'am.
Wow. Colette Rhodes.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So we're at this festival thing. There's this one shade that she's been like dicking around with on the semi-regular, and he apparently is boring as shit. I want him to have a book though, and I want his book to be somebody who like gets him out of his shell. You know what I mean? Like the nerd.
Yeah, because he is not only boring, but he's also incredibly privileged. He basically doesn't leave court. And so he needs to see how the other half live, frankly.
But then while he's talking, While he's talking, she makes the comment. She's like, because she's not listening to him. And she's like, you know, I should probably be more interested in him, but I have a borderline clinical aversion to things that are good for me. So I won't. And I was like, Verity, stop it. We're still in chapter fucking 1.
See, I did not identify with that one, but I saw it hard and I liked it.
Boy, yeah. So then there's a commotion and she gets excited because she's like, oh shit, there's a shade that's causing some commotion, but one that I don't know. Let's go see what it is. And
he is decrepit.
He's
he is wearing a towel because he cannot make shadow. They wear their own shadows. They make their own clothes out of their magic shadows. He can't even do that. He's literally got like a towel around his waist to cover his junk. He's malnourished because he refuses to eat from the communal stores because traditionally that was always for shades that couldn't go into the human realm. And so it was for like very young shades and very, very old shades. And because there's this moratorium on most shades going into the human realm to feed, everybody's doing it now. And there are certain people, including the king's mom, who refuse to eat from the communal stores and are essentially like starving.
Starving to death.
Yeah. And so he comes up and his plan apparently at first,
Real quick, though, his name is Theon, and even though centuries ago they stopped using nobility terms, he is very adamant that he is the Duke of Lindau. He's not just the brother to the king, he's the Duke of Lindau.
And you will call him Your Grace. Yeah. So he comes there and he's like, he wants to be like, this is bad leadership to make all the shades not able to go feed in the human realm. But instead, he gets his knickers in a twist and he decides, I want a hunter of my own.
And while she's watching him, she does think to herself, oh no, I'm going to feel sorry for the bad guy. I can feel it in my poor decision-making bones. And again, I felt very seen.
Very seen. Very seen.
Oh my God. And then he's like, I want my own power source. And everyone's like aghast. And then Verity jumps forward and she's like, I'll go.
I'll be on power source duty, she says.
And everyone's
and everybody else is like, are you sure? And then he grabs her by the neck and he's like, yes, I am kidnapping you. You are my captive now. And she's like, nope, still going. She goes, ooh, are we playing hostage and kidnapper? I can roll with that. And he goes, I am kidnapping you. He snapped. A little late to the party, but oh well. And then he's like, this power source is mine now. And she's like, still going voluntarily.
And then on top of that, she thinks to her friend Mira was like, maybe you just need to like find a sense of maybe you shouldn't be in the palace anymore. And she thinks to herself, while this is all happening, this was probably what Mira had meant when she suggested I look for a sense of purpose outside the palace walls. Fucking this guy back into the land of the living was going to be my purpose. And I took that responsibility seriously. My dude was going to come so hard, he'll see shadows for a week.
I love her so much.
He's like dragging her away and she's like, wait, I have to pack my stuff. So he's like, okay, fine.
And get my cat. She has a cat. She brought a cat to the shade realm.
Fester.
Nobody has seen a cat ever.
Yeah, they don't have pets in the shade realm. So he's like, fine, you can go get your stuff, but you're still my captive. And she's like, okay, I'll be back.
Okay, bye, Schnookums. And then she goes in and there's like all the hunters being like, you can still back out right now. And then Tallulah, she goes, Verity. Tallulah began patiently. It's not your job. Right. He has to want to fix himself. Totally. I get that. He seems very passionate though, right? I do like that in a man.
This girl took the red flags and made a dress out of them. She's like, what a beautiful color. It complements my skin. Oh my God. By the way, Tallulah not Tallulah, Verity is a maximalist. She has a ton of shit. And they're like, maybe, what if you just only take like 1 or 2 boxes? And
it's
she's
the
like,
essentials. And she says,
she's like,
all of it's essential. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. And then as they're leaving, Damon, who is one of Theon's half-brothers, also brother to the prince, or not the prince, the king, is like, I'm going to come visit you tomorrow and see how you're doing. And Theon's like, no, you won't. And she's like, he will. He's coming tomorrow. It's okay. She's already like, shh.
Yeah, and she's like, listen, I can manage him. This is not going to be a problem. So as he's walking her back, he says, you do realize that you are my captive now, I confirmed, because Verity didn't seem to understand the magnitude of her situation. Right. I volunteered to be your captive. The corner of her mouth twitched, and the motion was quite enchanting. You clearly don't know what you were volunteering for. You are my captive. You will live here forever, and I will feed from you at my leisure. Well, if you say so, she shrugged dismissively.
Oh my God. And so we get back to
I'm so sorry. I just saw another line that I really liked.
Dude, this is good.
It's a problem.
I knew this episode was gonna be like 50% fucking quotes. It's a problem.
I mean,
oh God.
So it said she's thinking about, like, she's moving into the room. She's thinking about her options and stuff. And she says, I doubted Theon was going to need any encouragement. His options were basically fuck me or die, but I still wanted to make an effort. She's thinking about, like, putting on lingerie or something for him. Yeah. Saving lives was good, honest work, and I wanted to treat it with the respect it deserved. Hey, HBs! Guess what? Heaving Bosoms is officially on YouTube. Head over and subscribe to our channel or search for the pod on YouTube Music. We've got an audio-only podcast option that includes our entire back catalog and a channel where you get to see our ridiculous faces. In the history of the podcast, we started recording video relatively recently, so that has a much more contemporary offering. But a lot of our social media videos will also be on there and some extras. Ooh! Okay, there's an HB YouTube channel. Spread the word and subscribe.
And then, oh my gosh. Okay, so she's in this fuzzy pink robe. She's in these fuzzy pink slippers, right? Because she hasn't gotten dressed up yet. But while she's meandering around her room, she finds the staircase. And she walks up this staircase. And when she opens the door, Theon's lounging on his bed in his room. And she's like, oh, okay.
And he says, good, you came to service me.
And then... So in her head, she's thinking that it's honestly genius of him to keep her in the mistress dungeon for easy access. And then she calls it a courtesan holding cell and a mistress storage closet. And then she just gets naked and crawls up on the bed. And she's like, can I touch myself to like get into it? And because she's submissive. Like, she doesn't like taking control in bed, right? But he's not in any state to be taking control.
Right.
And so she's like touching on herself, and then he looks at her and he's like, grind yourself on my thigh. And she's like, oh, now we're firing with gas. And so she does. Oh, and she's so into it, and they're both shocked. She's like, wow. Like, he's like, is this all for me? And she's like,
he's seeing her arousal. Oh my God, because hunters don't produce wetness. They only produce slick.
It's very Omega-verse coded.
Because it's buckets load of it, bucket loads.
Yeah.
So then he gets enough of her power from her just, initial arousal to have a little bit of strength. And so he's like, on my face, I will continue preparing you from here. And she's like, wait, you mean like sit on your face? And he was like, oh, yes. And then she says, I usually took, do you have the quote?
She usually takes a very, if he dies approach to face sitting, but I'm a little concerned because Theon looks like he might actually die.
Yeah. But then she ends up like on his face and then bowed over his horns. She's like resting her whole upper body on his horns.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's bananas. And then he can't stand it anymore. And so he's like, on my cock. And he basically throws her from his face to on her back between his legs. And he is a brand new shade. He's got, his face is filled out. He's got like, flesh on his bones. He's got muscles. And he comes up on her. And then he's going around her clit with the head of his dick. And she's like, oh my God, like, I don't think I can't. And he goes, yes, you fucking can. You can take all of it.
And then he just puts it in.
And then also at the beginning of this sex scene, she says, my one hard limit is no nodding. I'm saving that for marriage. And he's like, okay, I guess, like, whatever. But as he's having sex with her...
No, that's the next sex scene.
What?
When he knots her?
Yeah.
That's the next sex scene.
Oh, I know, but they establish it in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay.
No, so he's pumping into her, and then all of a sudden she goes, oh, you have 4 horns now. She's like feeling really woozy, and he's like, oh no, I'm taking too much. Like, I gotta cool it on the power slurping.
Well, then he pulls her back up to him and starts like snuggling her and feeds her some water and is tucking her up against his chest. And he says, close your eyes, my captive. Rest a moment. Gosh, that was sweet. Had I gotten him all wrong? I hadn't been expecting a soothing, gentle, romantic shade to be hiding underneath that prickly exterior, because you won't be of any use to me if you're dead, he added affectionately, patting me on the butt. So he's just like laying there snuggling her. She falls asleep and he's amazed at how powerful he's already feeling because he hasn't even come yet. And he's musing about it, and he starts thinking about like, oh, what if I just came all over her and rubbed it into her skin so she smelled like me? And then he's like, what the fuck?
Why would I want to do that?
That's weird.
Like, that's a weird possessive thought. And he lets her nap for an hour on him with his cock still penetrating her the whole time. It's incredible. And then when she like woozily wakes up, he throws her down again. And then he says, because he's like softened a bit. And so as it's getting harder, he says, let's see if you can take all of me without whining this time. And she's like, yeah, I can take it.
And then as he's fucking her, like she looks like sex drunk again.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I want to see that expression every morning and every evening. But then while he's looking at her, he notices her neck because she like moves her head, and he's like, oh man, I really want to bite that. And he's not used to telling himself no. And so he does. He does a big old chomp on her fucking shoulder right where her neck meets it. And he's like, oh wait, she doesn't like nodding. She doesn't want me to knot her though. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out because I'm about to knot. And she grabs him and she's like, it's too late now, buddy. You may as well knot me. And he's like, oh, fuck yeah. So he just like goes at it and knocks the shit out of her.
And when she bites him, she's saying like, oh, fuck, because it like feels really good. But she doesn't know if he understands the gravity of what he just did, what that gesture means.
Listener, if you haven't read this book, this series up until now, this is one of those series where there's a mate mark. And if you bite somebody mid-coitus, you are now mated. You are tied together till death.
And she's trying to explain it to him. And she says, are you sure you're okay with this? Because like we're together foreversies now. And then he goes, it doesn't matter what it means. You are my captive and I'm keeping you forever regardless. Yeah, no shit, you're keeping me forever. We're fucking bonded by some kind of, I don't know, magic or something, whatever. We're basically married. No, we're more than married. We're super married, she says.
Oh my gosh. And then she's like rambling about this and he's like, man, she's talking too much. And so he just like grinds into her until she's like a needy mess again and can't put together a coherent thought.
Yeah, she's like, stop distracting me with orgasms. We really have to talk about this. And then finally, when they do, he's like, I'm not upset about this at all. This works out really nicely for me, actually. So what's it going to take? Like, we're mated, sure. And so that means that you will stay here forever. I will provide all of your material needs and I will feed from you whenever I want or whatever. And she's like, yeah, okay.
Well, and
Go
like,
ahead.
so her thing when she was, before all of this happened back at the palace, was like, I'm a little bit materialistic. And so like, I need somebody who's going to be able to take care of those needs. And so he says to her, what is it you require to be content here? A grander room? A separate wing for your pet beast, perhaps? Special foods? Jewelry? Name your price. I am one of the wealthiest shades in this realm. I will take care of you in all ways, and you will feed me and stay here with me. Make your demands, my captive. Honestly, when you put it like that, it doesn't sound so bad. Can I be bought? Yes. Maybe.
Maybe.
And then she looks at him and says, and this nodding thing, how often do I get this? As often as you like. Verity nodded solemnly, and I wondered if I had stumbled upon the most delightful being in the entire realm.
I love them so much.
Oh, but then, so they end up having this like back and forth. He agrees to take her to the castle twice a week to see her friends. And he doesn't know what to do with all of these mate feelings that he's having because he doesn't really know what's going on. And then he gets up and leaves her on the bed. And she's like, wait, where are you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going back to work. Find something to amuse yourself. And then leaves.
And leaves her.
And she is like stuck in the wet spot. And she's like, what?
And she's literally like dripping cups of both of their cum out of her. She literally has to like take a cloth and put it on her pussy and like struggle to the bathroom so that she can do a cursory cleanup, it says, so that she doesn't leave a trail of slick down the stairs. She doesn't want to leave a snail trail.
Oh my God. And while she's walking, she's thinking about how she's a little disappointed about the lack of aftercare because it makes her feel like a fleshlight with bonus charging capabilities.
Oh, Verity.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But then one of the two people who like take care of the house and take care of the people who live in the house, her name is Adarith. And she comes in and she's like, hey, I thought maybe you'd like a bath. I already drew you one. And then they're talking about everything. And Adarith is like, I think maybe it would be best like not to mention this mating mark to Prince Daemon. Actually, Adarith just brings it up. And then by the end of their conversation, Verity says she doesn't want to mention it to Prince Daemon because she doesn't want the other shades like freaking out and deciding that Theon bit her against her will, even though like that's kinda ish what happened ish. But she wants to see what this is before they intercede, essentially. And then she's like, Theon may have sucked at aftercare, but Adarith was on it, so I could live with that. It was the best. So now we find out, I think, about Theon, right? Don't we find out his backstory?
We'll just give you the backstory. Does it like... Timing doesn't matter because we get dropped little hints throughout the book. Basically, Theon, so in Shade Society, it's very much like whoever's strongest wins and is in charge.
Right.
Because Theon was the crown prince. And
He
then
was the eldest.
And then his half-brother, Alaric, challenged him and won. So he was now crown prince. And then his other half-brother, who's like 10 years younger than him, Daemon, challenged him.
When he was already really weak after fighting Alaric. They didn't even let him like power up or do anything.
And he lost. And so now he's third in the pecking order.
And he essentially gets banished to like the old palace, Ludlow Castle or whatever.
Well, and it's because his dad... That's where he was raised. He was raised in that palace by his like carekeepers because his father was preparing him to be the next king. And then when he lost all of the things, Alaric and Daemon stayed at the main castle with good old daddy.
And he says that his dad basically never looked at him again.
Because
let alone
he wasn't the
talk
crown
to
prince.
him or do anything for him. And so he's been like banished on his own for the past however many years. And he's kind of a brain character. He's like kind of a mustache twirler, thinking that he's going to like take over the throne at some point.
He's like, with all of the power I get from Verity, I'm strong enough to rule the thing again.
Yeah. But then he's like, however, because we have seen a bunch of like uprisings in the previous books and like, you know, some people who want to overthrow the king. And he's like, but I have no patience for them because I can talk shit about my brothers and I can plan to overthrow them, but like nobody else can, you know?
It's
like
very
I don't want to do
rivalry.
that. Yeah. I'm not going to support you in your overthrowing of him. And I also don't want your help. You're terrible. Mm-hmm. So then Damon basically comes by the next day and she's wearing a jumpsuit that like covers her mark.
Turtleneck.
Yeah. They have this conversation where Damon's like, oh, can I speak with you alone outside? And Theon's like, no, you may not. And she's like, don't get aroused. Like, you don't want him to know how toxic you are and how much you like that. And then as she's walking out, he grabs her by the waist because she's like, yes, of course, I will go talk to you on the porch. He grabs her by the waist and he says, don't you forget who you belong to. And then he takes a big sniff because she immediately just puddles in her pants. And she's like, why am I such a toxic beast? Like, I love this so much. And I know it's a problem, but also I love it. And like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then it's basically Damon just checking on her. Like, I'm going to be coming to check on you semi-regularly, blah, 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 blah. So then we see a scene that we've kind of already talked about where, you know, it's the people where he's like, you're not allowed to overthrow him. I'm going to overthrow him. But you're not allowed to talk shit. And then we find out that Theon is a brilliant inventor.
Mm-hmm. He has like a laboratory downstairs.
And so we see him in his little lab, and then the cat Fester comes and steals some of his lunch, and he's like, herbity gerbity gerbity, and he like grabs the cat after like chasing it around his lab for a while.
After saying, halt, beast.
And so he grabs the cat and takes it upstairs to like shove it at Verity and be like, keep control of your animal. But then he gets into the like in the dining room where she's having lunch, and she's like, oh, are you going to join me for lunch? And then he just makes the declaration. He's like, from here on out, we are having lunch together every day. And she's like, okay.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. Wow.
Like, that's He's like, she's so sassy with him.
I love it. I love it. And he loves it too. There are so many times in the book where he's like, she didn't give me the proper amount of deference, and for some reason I didn't care. I don't care at all.
This book is so wonderful.
It is.
Then we find out where they're invited to the castle for dinner the next night, and he's like, well, obviously we're not going, but he doesn't say that out loud, and he sees how excited she is, and he's all disgruntled, but he's like, I'm not gonna take away her happiness, so I guess I have to go to the castle. And then he gets a little sad mopey because he's sad because he's like, why can't I excite her the way that the thought of being around her friends excites her?
Yeah, why can't my company be enough for her? But like, also, I'm going to make every single one of her flights of fancies come true.
Well, then it's the next day. We zippy zap. And she's like, oh man, I think that Theon, because she's always been somebody who, oh God, talk about feeling seen, has been described as too much.
Yeah.
And like people get tired of her. And so she's worried. She's worried that the reason she's worried that Theon is already tired of her is because, according to her, well, he didn't pull me out of mistress storage last night, so he must be tired of me. Mistress storage, it fucking kills me. And we meet Theon's mom, Xanthia. We meet his sister, Rainy. Rainy is...
I'm so sorry. Her name is Melody Rainy Willow. And I need listener to know that before we get to her nickname, which is Rainy. Thank you so much. there's no more questions that I'm taking at this point. So yeah, and Xanthia, his mom, is like the bubbliest, most excited person ever. She loves
so
Verity
cute.
immediately. Yeah. And they invite themselves to dinner, and he's trying to be like, no, like, absolutely not. But then he looks at Verity, and Verity goes, actually, I don't think it would be a problem. And he's like, all right, I guess you're coming then. Like, Verity wants you to come. You're coming.
You're coming.
So they go, and they end up sitting down to a private dinner. He gets seated next to the Dowager
Orabelle.
Queen. Yeah, Orabelle. And Orabelle's like, do you like Verity? And he says like, are you trying to take her away from me? And she's like, no, I'm asking a question. Like, just go with me here. And he's like, there's this big pause, and Verity's listening to it, and she's ready for him to say like, fuck no, she's the worst. I'm going to give her up, like, blah, blah, blah. And instead he just pauses and says, she is an adequate power source.
Excuse the fresh fuck out of me, Melody Carlisle.
What?
He says she's an excellent power source.
Oh, okay. So it's better than what I thought. What
But
my
it's so
emotional
sad,
memory
though, because,
took away
like,
from it.
Verity, like, she's not even sad that she's not more than that to him, though, because she doesn't, it's what she expected him to say. Like, this is a common theme throughout the book. Verity is just, she expects the worst of everybody and about how they feel about her.
And not in an angry way, just
No,
like that's how the world is.
Oh, it's so fucking depressing. So then, God, Orabelle is delightful. I love that old woman so much. She's in the first book a lot, and like, oh, she's just so crotchety. I love her. So, unsurprisingly, Verity really loves animals, and this just brought me a lot of joy. She's comparing what all of the dudes at the table are to what kind of dog they would be.
Uh-huh.
And it was super cute. I'm not going to read the entire quote, but she's like, she just loves animals. You can guess.
Yeah.
She brought her cat from the Earth realm,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, to be fair, like, she brought a cat. If I was going to Shade Realm, I'd be like, yo, I got 3 dogs. They're all coming, just so you know. But anyway, so the reason that Rainey actually wanted to come is because she's dead set. She's about to be of the age where she would be allowed to go feed for herself in the human realm. And it's this big thing.
It's a rite of passage for
Yes.
Shades.
And so she's hoping to get an exemption. It ends up not happening. Like, she barely brings it up before she is made to leave. And so, but I'm just bringing it up because it's important
It's a big plot
at
point.
the end of the book.
Yeah. So then as they're headed home, she realizes that like he's running out of steam, and frankly she is too, because she has seen so many Shade and Hunter couples, and like they weren't scrutinized the way that she and Theon are.
Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't have bumps in their relationship. So like sort of get off my dick, you know? And then she says, well, I think it's time to go, Schnookums. Do you want to go, Pookie Bear?
And so they get home and she's like, do you need to feed? And he like does a little check-in and he's like, I don't have to feed, but like,
I don't need to.
we could make this happen. And so they walk into an unused room.
Yeah.
It is absurd to him that she has so much desire for him, but she does.
Yeah.
And she's like, drop the shadows, bud. And he does. And then she gives him a blowjob, which another one of my favorite. Like this same thing happened in fucking Whispers of the Deep. A human doing something that somebody of your own species can't fucking do. Because guess what? Shades have sharp, pointy teeth. So oral is not a thing.
She's giving him his first blowjob, and it blows his ever-loving mind. And she like saunters out, and I think this is where she says like, we should probably talk about babies at some point. I want like 24, so something to think about. And then, oh no, I think that's at lunch the next day. But anyway, after she says like, I want a lot of babies, it says, as soon as she was out of sight, my fist was wrapped around my cock before she'd shut the door behind her. He's so into it.
This made me like adorable, hilarious though, because I skipped this earlier because I didn't think that I needed to bring it up, and now I'm wrong based on something that just got said.
Now you have to.
So the first time that they have sex, right, he thinks to himself, these noises that she's making are only for me. Nobody else is allowed to hear them. No, these are my noises.
I'll kill anybody else who hears them.
And then after she goes down on him, he purrs. And she's like, oh, nobody's ever purred
God, I love that part.
Nobody's ever purred for me before. And in his head, he's like, who do I need to kill for not responding appropriately to my mate? So he like, on one hand, he's like, nobody's ever allowed to see this again. And then on the other hand, he's like, I'm going to kill them because they didn't make you feel good about what you did for them. Like,
that's right. I'm obsessed with them.
So then the next day, he's watching her garden because she's a little Melody. And she's just meandering out there, looking at all the plants. And he is thinking to himself, because he's starting to put a couple of things together. He's like, I wonder why she came with me. Because, like, she's clearly beloved by everyone at the castle. She's not leaving because she doesn't want to be there.
She was unhappy. Yeah.
Why is this? And then he sees that one of the bad guys who's trying to overthrow, but nobody else is allowed to overthrow except for him. And he takes off after him. And
he sees him specifically surveilling not only the castle, but specifically Verity. And that's when he loses his shadow mind. Boy, he goes running, and the guy sees him and so tries to hide basically in the in-between, which is this space that is like, it's all darkness, and it's essentially a way for the shades to travel not only between their world place to place, but also travel into the human realm as well. So he finds this guy in the in-between, in the shadows, and he knifes him to death and feels his body like turn to dusty shadows underneath him. And he's like, well, that won't be a problem anymore. So that's good. He'll never threaten Verity again.
Yeah. And then we see a conversation. Oh my God. We see a little conversation that leads to like the most incredible thing, because he realizes he doesn't know a whole lot about her. And so he's like asking her questions, and she realizes what he's doing. And he's like, I can't put her in a little box. She's too distracting when she's just herself. I need to be able to like label her and categorize
and periodically, he's been like, he'll ask her a question or he'll say something, and then her response, he's like, you never say what I think you're going to say. Like, I never know what's going to happen with you. And she's like, yeah, keeping you on your toes.
And then this conversation, she says, you're thinking too hard. If you want to learn about me and make it fun, you should just chase me. And then we zippy zap.
Yeah.
She has decided to explore the castle, and she's just meandering. And while she's meandering, she feels like she's being followed and watched. And she's like,
interesting.
And so she goes into the library.
Well, first she starts going a little bit faster, and like because she can feel where he is with the mating bond, essentially. And so the presence that's following her keeps up with her, even when she starts just like super running. She's running for her life in these corridors, and she can feel him behind her. And then she goes into the library. Please take it from here, Sabrina.
So in the library, she's looking, quote unquote, at a book, and he grabs her from behind on the throat. And he's like, squeeze 3 times if you don't want this. And she doesn't squeeze him. And then he is like, do you want me to chase you? Squeeze once. And she squeezes once. And he waits, and she only squeezes once. And then he's like, is slick dripping down your thighs for me? Squeeze once. And so she squeezes once. And then he like pulls her over to a table, and he's like, are you going to bend over, or do I have to make you bend over the desk? And she doesn't bend over, but she doesn't squeeze at all. And then he fucking pushes her over that desk, puts her over it, and ties her up with his shadows. We have shadow restraints.
Yeah. Shadow bondage, y'all.
And she's tied up, and she is so freaking horny for this. And then she's just thinking about those like endlessly adaptable shadow tentacles that he created, because they had a little conversation at one point about all of her fantasies that she has, and she's like teasing him now because he's not like stopping her from talking, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm your captive, are you gonna punish me and doing all of the, and he's being completely serious right now. He's like, you are my captive, are you gonna punish me? You're my captive. Sure.
Should I?
And then she's in her head, she's like, they're having this like kinky role play, and she's like, oh man, he's just so cute. I wonder, like, if anybody else had realized that, he really would just be so loved in the shadow court.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cute. And then he gets super dominant, flips her over, and she's like, put one in my mouth.
Yeah.
And so he puts a shadow tentacle in her mouth. And she's like
going me with
down, it. And then like starts to expand it. So it's like taking up all of the space in her mouth and throat, but she can like breathe just a little bit. And then he fucks her while he's gagging her on his shadows. And like,
and she's never come so hard in her life.
And then afterwards, while he's nodding her, he's so cute. He's like, did you like that?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I did. Oh, and then he's like, what else can I do for you? Tell me all of your fantasies.
Yes.
And so she does.
And we don't see that. That's off page. It basically is like, and so I told him everything, and we were there for a very long time.
Don't worry, that check does get cashed. This was not just so. Yeah, we zippy zap. We see Theon doing all of his little things because we find out. So he has decided he wants to overthrow the throne and become king. But to do that, he has all of these plans. He has plans on how to improve the hunters' lives in the realm because they live in a really shitty old house. Basically, they call it the hunter sanctuary.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's like, wants to improve their life in the realm. Where can we grow food for them so we don't have to get all of it from the human realm? What, like, we can improve energy store efficiency. What jobs can humans have? Like, and most importantly, what is the punishment for breaking the laws that protect humans?
Hunters. Yeah.
Yeah, hunters.
Yeah, and here's what I found to be fascinating about this part of the plot line. This whole, like, Theon is planning to overtake and overthrow his brother situation. Because he says that a lot. He says, I am planning to overthrow my brother. But then anytime you actually get a look at the plans that he is creating, or like the devices that he is creating, it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with war or how to, get more energy for himself to become a better fighter. No. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about, like, keeping shades safe in the in-between and, like, how can we make sure that they can feed without doing blah, blah, blah? How do we entice more hunters here? It's all of his plans are about improving the realm for everyone, not about overthrowing.
More specifically, it's about what comes after the overthrow. And what I think it is that he doesn't, it's not that he just doesn't know, he doesn't want to have to work with his brothers, and so he has to be the one in charge. And if he's in charge, he's the king, which means in order to enact all of his plans, he has to be the king. But he has no interest, frankly, at this point in the book. Guess what? Theon does not want to be king. He does not want to have to deal with the court. He does not want to have to do it. He should be an advisor, but he's just got so much pride. So much pride. And to be fair, he was raised to be the king. So like, it tracks. And he just never would have thought to himself, what if I'm the advisor? Because he has no relationship with his brothers.
Right.
So then she decides that she wants to clean up the castle. So she's decided to start dusting in the library, and she doesn't show up for lunch one day. And he's like, where the fuck is Verity? And so he goes up to the library and brings her some lunch. And he says something. He's like, you can do whatever you want, dude. You're the Duchess. And she's like,
yeah.
but I thought that was like a marriage thing, not a mate thing. And he looks at her and he says, I would marry you today, but you want to keep it a secret. Oh!
Uh-huh.
And she's like, oh, there's so many little things that he does, and it's just so precious. And then while they're having lunch, he made sure that she had potatoes, so it's not all meat, because shades live on a meat-only diet. So, like, all of the
rich
shades,
ones do.
Yes, that is accurate. We spend a lot of time with the rich shades.
Yeah, that's
the first
basically
couple of
all
books.
it is. Yeah.
And then she's surprised because she's like, so what do you do all day? And he actually opens up to her. He's like, I spend time in my workroom. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, my laboratory.
And she's like, I'm allowed in there? And he's like, yeah, just be careful.
Yeah, what about
like,
you
it's
being
dangerous.
the Duchess is what don't you understand? Of course, come down. I'll show you everything.
So then he takes her down and he's showing her all of this sciencey stuff, and he shows her this little ball of the in-between. The black shadow that they used to travel. He has captured a little bit of it in a little ball, and she's like, this is beautiful.
In a little glass ball, yeah.
He's like, well, would you like it? And she's like, bauble? Yes.
Yeah, love a bauble.
And then he makes her a freaking necklace to keep it in.
He just is a jeweler as well because of how handy he is. Yeah, he makes her like this filigreed silver thing to hold the actual orb, the glass orb, and then puts it on one of the chains that he also made and gives it to her. And she's like, this is, I think, maybe the best present I've ever gotten. She's like bowled over by it.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the point where, so we've told you all about his past with Alaric. This is when she learns about it. And so she has a little bit more understanding of him. And then they're standing right after he gives her the necklace. And Verity's gaze drops to his mouth and she like steps closer.
Yeah.
And her front is brushing against him. And she like pauses, because this is from his point of view. So like us as people, we're like, oh, she's going in for a kiss. Guess what? Shades don't kiss. They got those sharp chompers.
He doesn't know that.
He's like, what does she want me to tell her to run? Do I release my tentacles, as she so aptly called them? Or was it something else? And because he doesn't know what to say, he says to her, do you wish to feed me? I rasped. Verity blinked up at me, a slight frown marring her expression. Damn it. I'd gotten it wrong. Sure. We can do that. No. Tell me what it is you wanted to do. It was nothing. Should we go upstairs then? The ground seemed to be crumbling beneath my feet. Things had been going so well, and I'd ruined it with one clumsy misstep. Even her scent was changing, souring into something less settled. I did not intend to ruin your mood, I told her solemnly. And it's just like...
And she's like, no, it's fine. And she goes upstairs and she's like, I am being not irrational, but she understands that her feelings have nothing to do with him. This is a lot of like baggage that she has emotionally from that early relationship, because she knows that shades don't kiss. And so and especially since he's been so sequestered, even after the hunters got there, she knows that he probably doesn't even know what a kiss is. And so she's a little bit mad at herself for like losing her cool and letting her past get in the way of that moment. And she's just like, I'll figure out a way to make it better.
At the same time, she's also kicking herself a little bit, though, because she knows that kissing isn't a mate thing. It's a love thing. So they're mates, but they're not in love. And she was expecting affection from Theon when he'd only ever offered passion and a comfortable life. And she decides that she refuses to rock the boat because she doesn't want to ruin their burgeoning friendship. By the way, after she walked away, Theon, the cutest grouch in the whole entire world, decides to make her another pretty necklace, hoping to revive whatever moment it is that he muddled up, because he still doesn't know what she was going to do. Yeah. And it's precious. Because like in the court, there's there's a couple of human shade couples at this point. So like in the court, they know about kissing, but he's so just locked.
He's so isolated. He's so isolated.
Yeah. And then, so she wakes up horny as hell because we find out Theon was pleasuring her while she slept, and now he has her all tied up with his shadow tentacles, and she says that he's such a good listener because guess what? One of her fantasies was somnophilia. Boom!
Yeah.
Yes! And she says, you're such a good listener, and he says to her, better not get used to it since you're my captive and you belong to me.
Okay, Theon.
Well, and then...
So then he goes down on her.
Well, hang on.
Okay.
Hang the fuck on.
Yeah, please.
Because he's like, you belong to me. And she's like, who do you belong to? And he says, I am yours, my captive, your mate, and you are mine, and one day you will be my queen. And I'm going to keep you very, very happy. And you are going to keep me very well sated. Aren't you? Ooh. And then he starts going off about like in her ear, he's like growling into her ear. He's like, how many children do you want? And she gets wetter. And like, then he's like, you'll make a very good mate for me indeed. And she's like, she's super into it. But also in her head, she's like, he's only saying this because
this
that
is
awkward
sexy
moment.
stuff.
Well, also like to make up for the awkward moment.
Yeah.
And then we get tentacle penetration. Listener, because he doesn't want to make her sore with his gigormous cock and knot. And he's like, you don't get my cock today.
This
I'm
is
gonna
about
fuck you with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she realizes he can't feel, like, they can't feel through their shadows. She is so aware that this is just for her.
Yeah. It's so sweet and wonderful. And it's like making so many of her fantasies come true that no other person that she's had sex with has even been willing to contemplate. And it's just like, of course Theon would do that from his perspective. Of course.
And then we do get some aftercare because once they're done, he picks her up and they go take a bath together. And again, I love this so much. He checks in after all of these things because they're like in the bath and he's like, did you enjoy that? And she's like, I did. Did you? It's okay if you didn't. You can tell me. Because like she knew that somnophilia was one of the more out there things that she had said on as one of her fantasies. And like she was pretty sure that he wouldn't be interested, but he's like, I like having control of your pleasure. I like that you're at my mercy, that you come when I want you to come, that you take what I give you. They're not urges I've experienced before. And she's surprised that he doesn't have all of this experience. And then we find out he hasn't had sex in 20 years. He tells her that. And she's like, why have you gone on so long? And he says, I never had much interest before you.
Yeah. Because they're mates. Because it's fated.
It's so cute.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, it's also because he's been essentially disgraced and banished. And he's like, before, I didn't really want to get with any shade who only wanted to get with me because I was the crown prince. And now I'm not really interested in the sort of people who would, like, you know, seek me out because I'm, like, not the crown prince anymore. Yeah, like, yeah. So, yeah, it's just so great.
So we zippy zap. It's the next day. Damon is here to check up again. And they're out on the balcony. And Theon comes out there and sits down on a chair and like pulls her into his lap and is like snuzzling into her neck while they're all talking. And then Theon and Damon they're actually having like a super chill discussion.
Yeah, like a civil conversation.
Yeah, they're just chatting. And then Theon's like, oh yeah, I'd murdered one of those guys trying to overthrow the throne. And Damon was like, because he was trying to overthrow the throne? And Theon's like, no, because he was staring at well, he doesn't say my mate because nobody knows. He's like, he was staring at Verity. And Damon's like, yeah, that tracks.
And Verity's just sitting there being like, what? Okay. And then she goes, you didn't tell me. And he's like, was I supposed to? And she's like, when would you have told me? And he's like, well, never, probably. Like, why would it come up? It's the best.
Oh, and this is when Verity starts realizing that Theon talks a big game about taking over the realm, but like, ultimately his plans have no teeth to them. She says that she says that he is very much a brain and the Pinky and the brain. And then she pauses and thinks, does that make me Pinky? That tracks. Like,
well, yeah, because we haven't told you this, but like she loves dressing up to the nines, because in that relationship, she like basically wore black all the time and like made herself into the smallest person she could be so that her boyfriend could shine.
Well, and like specifically pink, like her room, her mistress dungeon, she has like pink fabric covering all the walls. Like, it's so
her
cute.
tracksuits are pink. She wears like a baby doll dress at one point that's like fluffy and pink. Everything is pink and or sparkly.
Yeah. So after Damon leaves, she decides, she's like, I think that tomorrow when the whole court is traveling here, I think we need to tell them about the mate mark. And they have this adorable little conversation where he's like, but you're still my captive. And she's like, yeah, I'm your captive. And he's like, and I kidnapped you. And she's like, you sure did, big guy. Yep.
Yeah.
What a good kidnap. And then
that's what you did.
And then she's like, but maybe we had a connection.
And she feels so vulnerable. She's like, oh my God, I'm the lamest ever.
And then he says, I am more attached to you than I expected to be. That was the Theon equivalent of I'd die for you, my love.
Yes,
and I refused to believe otherwise.
Yes, Verity, you are correct.
And then she looks him in the face while she's sitting in his lap, and she says, I want to kiss you. And he's like, okay. And so she does, and she gives him...
Well, no, she says, are you okay with that? Like, can I try that? And he's like, you can touch me in whatever way, like, you want, you can do anything. And she thinks to herself, like, the amount of trust it would take for somebody to just be like, carte blanche on my body, go ahead. She's very honored.
And so then they have a little kiss, and it starts to get hot and heavy, and then they get interrupted because guess fucking what? Rainey has disappeared into the human realm because she has decided that she deserves to feed off of a human.
So he immediately freaks out because he's very, very protective of his little sister. And earlier in the book, he talks about how he indulges her a lot because while he's talking about overthrowing the throne, she is talking about overthrowing him so that she can take over the house. And he's always like,
she's like, you should enjoy this house while you have it, Verity.
Yeah.
You won't be here forever.
When I overthrow my brother, you don't get to live here anymore. And he's always like, yeah, that's right. You get that confidence. He's so sweet to her. So he's like, I absolutely have to go find Rainey. And I think I know where she is because I told her earlier about this specific place to enter the human realm.
Yeah, it's all been planned out for years. Her first feeding.
Yeah. And he's like, and you have to come with me, Verity. And she's like, oh, no, that's a really bad idea. I should not go to the human realm. I can like wait for you here. And he's in this irrational, panicky place. And he says, you're not safe without me. And she says, okay, or I can go wait at the castle where all the other hunters are, and I would be safe there. And he's like, no, my brother Damon wants you. I cannot leave you. Nobody's going to take you away from me. And she's like, that's absolutely not true. Like, we had the opportunity to get together, Damon and I, and neither of us were interested. And he's like, no, I know it in my bones. You have to stay with me. So she keeps on repeating, this is a terrible idea. I cannot go back to the human realm. Like, if I get caught by the hunters, I may never be able to return, and they will pump me for all of the information about the Shadow Realm that they possibly can. And he is just not hearing it. He cannot hear it. So he drags her into the human realm through this place he told Rainey about. And it's basically in like the wall of a canyon. And
it's a hike. It's a hiking trail.
Yeah, but it's specifically like there's a big drop. Yeah. And the wind is bananas. Like the wind is so strong. And she keeps on being like, this is a really bad idea. This is a really bad idea. I need to go back. Please, just like, I'll even hang out in the in-between, you know? And he has no problem here because he's a shadow right now. In the human realm, he's not corporeal. And as he turns around to be like, no, we have to go find Rainey, like, I'll be right back or whatever, this gust, yeah.
Well, no, he turns around and he sees that, like, the wind is buffeting her. And that's when he's like, okay, this was a bad idea. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
I
he's
made a
like,
mistake.
I made a mistake. And he goes to grab her. And then the wind is so hard that it pushes her over the side of the cliff. And she falls and she hits her head on a rock and she's bleeding. And he can't do anything because he's not corporeal.
He's not
he has
corporeal.
to go get another human. Oh my God. And then while he's looking at her, he's like watching her and he's like, Verity, my love, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have brought you here. You were right. I'll take you home now and you can rest. I will care for you. Just open your eyes, my love. I need you to walk a few steps for me. I will guide you back into the in-between and carry you the rest of the way. Just stand for me. Open your eyes, my love, and stand for me. I'll take you home and care for you, and you will be well. I'll never ask anything of you again. Please, Verity, wake up for me. And then she's not waking up, and so he decides to go get help, and he tells her, I will return for you, my love. I'm getting help. I'm getting help. Just don't die. I will be very cross with you if you die. You will come home with me, and I will love you as you should be loved. Do not die.
Oh my God. So he goes back to the Shadow Realm knowing that, like, he's in deep shit for several different reasons. And he does not care. He goes up to Soren and Astrid, the two, like, badasses of the guard, and tells them, like, we need to go get Astrid. I need your help to go get her. And the place where they can get her through, now that it's more light outside, because it's basically like the morning now, the place that they could get her through isn't big enough for Astrid's body. And so they're like, okay, we're going to have to figure out another way to get there.
Well, and they're also like, what if she goes to a hospital? We'll never be able to find her. And he looks at them and is like, well, that's not that's not exactly true. And boy, Soren is giving him hell. He's like, you bit her? You mated her? What the fuck is wrong with you, Theon?
Yeah.
And then we zippy zap to her. She wakes up in a hospital and she decides to play amnesiac because her nurse is a hunter.
And he has alerted all of the other hunters. The whole hunter council is coming.
And the way that she plays amnesiac is she looks at this nurse as he leaves and is like, do you know where my boyfriend is? So they figured out that she's at a hospital, right? Astrid, Theon, and Soren know where she is, but now there's hunters crawling all over it.
And Astrid is notorious. She was the best hunter who ever hunted in their generation. So there's no way she can get into the hospital and not be seen by this convergence of hunters.
Well, and then while Astrid is trying to figure that kind of stuff out, we see a little conversation between Soren and Theon. And Soren's like, so, like, was the mating wholeheartedly consensual? Did she ask for the mate bite? And Theon is suddenly realizing that although she didn't make a fuss about the unexpected mate bite, he's putting it together that it's because she just didn't expect anything better for herself. And she hadn't considered her own happiness at all. And so now he's like, oh my God, I forced her into this.
I coerced her.
I'm awful.
And he's thinking, like, she won't even want to come back probably. Because what if she wasn't even happy with me and what if I fucked it up so badly? Yeah. That she doesn't want to come home. And he thinks to himself, like, I will take any punishment as long as she's happy, whether or not she comes back.
So we zippy zap. Theon is now in Shade Prison until he's needed to track Verity down. So because of this whole thing, the Shade police, basically, they go to investigate his house and they find all of his plans, but he's never written down any of his plans to overthrow anything. It's plans for like all of the things like that we have described previously, and most specifically, the plans of punishment for shades who endanger the human hunters.
Yeah.
And Alaric's the king. Alaric comes into his cell and they have this little heart-to-heart about like, I should have done better by you. Right? Like it's like I should have made more of an effort to reach out to you. I'm the one who shunned you, and so everybody else shunned you, and I should have brought you into the
fold, and I really messed it up. And Theon is like, it's bygones now, you know, it really doesn't matter. And then Alaric says, the council has taken the decision away from me because they think I'm biased. And they found your plans for punishment. And so it really doesn't look good. I'm trying to talk them out of a trial, but like it looks like that's where we're headed.
Well, and Theon specifically says, how ironic that I wrote my own death sentence.
Yeah. So then we go back to Verity. She's in the hospital and she wakes up to her ex coming in and being like, Verity, I missed you so much while you were on this hiking trip, because we're definitely not only boyfriend and girlfriend, we're engaged. Like, we're so happy together, and we have been forever. There's been no break in our relationship at all. And she asks him about his mom, and he says that she died about 6 months ago. And then he says, I bet this is sort of bittersweet to you because, you know, she was kind of terrible to you. And in fact, it's been a weird few months now that she's not the one controlling my movement and image and stuff. And I'm learning a lot about like what people think of me in her absence. And she's like, oh boy, I do not have time for this, but okay. Like, wow, you still love me? And he is trying to give her information about like how they're going to move going forward because she is in trouble. She defected. She, you know, they know that if she remembers this, she knows.
You got kicked out for tentacles because they're stuck in the past.
No, I totally understand. But, you know, she left the human realm for the shadow realm. Oh, they're just assholes. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't register. That's what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about the 10 years ago.
No. And so he's saying, like, yeah, things are a little bit up in the air and we're going to have to figure it out because of this hiking trip. And she's just like, he's trying so hard to make it seem like we have never had problems. And she thinks to herself, like, is he trying to do this because the hunters like want information from me, or is he doing this because he actually still wants me? Like, this is really confusing for her. And he says that she's going to be checked out soon, and so he's going to bring her like clothes and stuff for that to happen.
Oh my God. And he brings her the worst shit to be walking out of a hospital and after being laid up in a hospital. It's like business casual shit. Like, and it's boring and it's uncomfortable. And like,
and the bra is 3 sizes too small. Mm-hmm. It's like the most. Yeah.
Yeah. So we zippy zap. We see Damon go to Theon's cell, and he basically is like, they're not going to wait for the trial until after Verity gets back because they don't believe she's coming back for you. So we're going to go ahead and do it. And they're not listening to any testimonials because they think they're biased.
Well, and he's like, we've been fighting hard for you. Like, we have been defending you as much as we possibly can, but they're just not listening. And Damon and Alaric can't figure out if it's because they're trying to like make an example of Theon so that other shades don't fuck with hunters, or like what it is. But the council is dead set on putting this shade to death. So they go in and they do like an hours-long mock trial. Well, it's a real trial, but...
Well, in the entire walk to the trial, he's thinking about how this is going to give Verity a chance to start over and find a mate worthy of her. Mm-hmm. And then on their walk, he tells Damon, you'll keep an eye on Verity, won't you? You'll keep her safe if anything happens. I mean it, Damon. See that she's kept in comfort. She drinks tea to break her fast, and she doesn't like meat before midday. Her beast, Fester, must be kept indoors for his own safety and will steal food from anyone and anything, but she cannot be without him. She likes a great deal of soft furnishing in her chambers in shades of pink and requires many beauty and comfort items from the human realm delivered regularly to her.
But she won't ask for it.
If she doesn't receive such items, she won't complain, as she has very low expectations of kindness and generosity, and it is imperative that you vastly exceed them, and she deserves only the best. And then Damon cuts him off, and he's like, what if we just run?
I mean, Damon's already been saying, like, I'll help you escape. And Theon has been saying, like, no, they'll know it's you, and I'm not going to risk you like that. And so Damon's like, I cannot hear you talk about Verity like this. It's breaking my entire heart. Let's run. And Theon's like, no, I'm going to face my punishment, because he thinks he deserves to be punished. He put her in danger. He got her injured. He's the one who got her captured by the hunters. And he fully thinks that he should be punished. And when he dies, she should have the opportunity to start over, because the mating bond will then be severed and she can have a new mating bond with a new shade. So he's not really even fighting for his own acquittal at all. But still, thankfully, the trial takes like hours and hours and hours. But then we zippy-zap back to Verity.
So back in the human realm, her ex doesn't take her to Denver like she expected. She gets brought to a hunter mansion where all of the hunter bigwigs have been waiting for her, basically. And they have a little chat, like, tell us all of the things that you know. Like, surprise, it wasn't a hiking trip. You got stolen by the shades and, like, attacked and assaulted.
You were kidnapped.
And they finally let you out after torturing you and almost killing you and blah, blah, blah. Because they think she has amnesia, and so they're trying to either catch her in not having amnesia or
trigger
make her side with them. Yeah. And so she doesn't
fall for it, doesn't do anything.
And oh my God, it's so beautiful. During this entire time, she's like thinking to herself, like, I wasn't fundamentally broken. No one was. And I deserved love. I deserved to be loved with all of my oddities and my too loud voice and my sometimes inappropriate jokes. I wasn't broken. It had just taken me a while to realize that all the parts that made up who I was were pieces of an interesting puzzle, not a mess of unwanted scraps.
Oh. And part of it is because she's starting to like feel a little bit bad for her ex, because it seems like he's genuine in wanting to like protect her from the other hunters and keep her comfortable or whatever. But she thinks to herself, like, that's not love. I love Theon. I know that I love Theon, and I would never even dream of creating some sort of fabrication to keep him with me. That's not love, and he wouldn't do that to me. So she ends up getting up, because the hunters are so vigilant about this that they keep all of the lights on in all of their facilities all the time. And because the shades can't enter the human realm if it's not at least a little bit dark. So
yeah, they need shadows.
They also, Also, there are no light switches in her room or her bathroom. So there's no way for her to even create any darkness.
What a fucking nightmare. As somebody who has to sleep in like pitch black, this would kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would need,
like we're going to have creepypasta Russian sleep experiment up in that fucking hunter mansion.
Yeah. So she goes into the bathroom because she's just like trying to get a little bit of time. She just wants a moment to herself.
I was like screaming sitting in my chair. I was like, find a tiny room! Throw the glass ball! Find the tiny room!
Yeah, because she's still wearing it. And so she gets into that room and she's like, I mean, I gotta try to get back no matter what. So even if I break it and it doesn't work, it's okay. I have to try. So she takes her necklace and she busts it. And then this piece of the in-between, like it's like a goo situation, and it covers
it's like
the
expanding
entire
foam.
Yeah.
In between.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, once everything is covered in that bathroom in whatever they call it, caspite or whatever, capsite, she is in the in-between. But now she doesn't have shoes on. Like, she wasn't ready for this, really.
She's also fresh out of the hospital after falling off the side of a cliff.
Yeah,
so, like, she's
already
not doing
weak.
so hot. And so we, like, skip forward a little bit in time, and she's actually laying down in the in-between, dying, basically.
She's ready to die. And we watched her, like, walk a bit, and, like, she's trying to find a door. She's trying to find a portal. She's yelling, trying to alert someone that she's there. And then finally, she just gets so weak and so cold. Apparently, the in-between is very cold. She didn't notice this. And so she lays down, and she's just like, this is where I die. I tried my best, but some things just don't work out. And what are you supposed to do, you know? But she then wakes up, and she's in the Hunter house, and she's in a bed. She's got her friends around her, and she's like, oh my God, where is Theon? And they're like, he has been on trial for several hours. And without a moment's hesitation, she just launches herself out of the bed. She's almost collapsing. She's like a baby fawn.
And as she's going to find Theon, she thinks to herself, Theon thought of himself as the villain in Alaric's story, but he was the hero in mine. And sometimes heroes needed to be rescued too.
Yeah.
So they make it to the trial. She stumbles into the room, and the people who have Theon on trial are pissed. They're like, you can't be in here. And she's like, get fucked. I have something to say. And so she's about to hit the ground. Theon catches her. She's sobbing. She can tell that he's hungry. And she's like, she thinks to herself, if I had enough energy, he'd be getting a blowjob in front of these stuffy assholes while they stared us down.
Yeah.
Because he's starving.
So they're like, tell us why Theon shouldn't be punished for endangering you. So she goes that route for a while. And then finally, what's up?
Hang on, though, because she finds out that he's going to die, and he's, like, worried about her being healthy, and he's like, you don't need to do this. You can be free and start over. And she looks him dead in the face and says, I dragged myself through hell to get back to you. I refuse to live. And she's poking him in the chest.
Yeah, she's poking him.
I refuse to live in a world without you in it. If you think you just get to up and die and leave me here, you are very fucking mistaken, Your Grace. You belong to me, and I'm not letting you go.
And
what
like Theon has never been so flattered and gobsmacked in his life. So then essentially her argument becomes, this isn't about me and it's not about us. This is about y'all and your baggage about, you know, the line of succession. You have no idea what to do with Theon because you feel weird around him, and that's why you're trying to put him to death. And like, he is so smart and he has so many ideas for the realm. And if you go through all of his stuff, like, he can help us improve this place. And then finally, either Alaric or Daemon are like, well, since you're the one he endangered, why don't you decide his punishment? And do you want to read it?
I don't have the exact, but I basically quoted the whole thing into a paragraph. So she says that he should be employed by the crown on a permanent basis, and that he will find this an acute sort of torture and consider it a punishment for the rest of his life. And he murmurs and he leans forward into her ear, and he's like, you have no idea. But if it means keeping you, there's no punishment I wouldn't face.
Well, and specifically because it's not just he should be employed by the crown. It's that he needs to collaborate with Alaric and Daemon and Ophelia and anybody else who should be involved. And she's like, having to do a team sport is going to be really hard for Theon, essentially. And like, he's not going to like it.
So then he's like, we're going to leave Alaric here to sort out the details. It's time to go home with as many healers as I can possibly find.
Oh my God.
So he's carrying Verity with like a horde of healers and all of her friends behind him. And he's thinking about how much he wants to tell them to fuck off and leave them alone. But like, Verity won't like it, so I won't do it. And then they walk in and he's like, you sleep in my room now. And she's like, does that mean I can use the mistress dungeon as a walk-in wardrobe? And he's like, in his head, he's like, I don't know what that is. Of course you can.
Of course you can. Whatever you want.
And then she pulls herself up into his ear and says, I'm in love with you, Theon, Duke of Lindau. And I closed my eyes for a brief moment, savoring the utter perfection of those words. I'm in love with you too, Verity, Duchess of Lindau. I am never letting you go.
Oh. So now it's been like, we sort of jump to weeks later, and he's been hovering, essentially. And she's very ready for him to, like, have something else to do. Please and thank you. I'm fine. And they end up having sex, and she gets very mad at him because he's trying to be gentle with her in bed. And he's being, like, really deferential and...
Very importantly, though, before, like, all of the sweet sex stuff, which there's a whole quote. I won't read the whole thing to you. But she tells him, you need to come out and face your punishment. You don't even know what you're in trouble for, but you're not allowed to come. You're going to give me so many orgasms that I can't see straight, and then you're going to carry me back to bed and snuggle me, and you're not going to come. And he's like, all right, sounds good. And he's like going at it in the library. And then like 5 seconds in, she's like, okay, I can't do it. Give me your knot now. Please, 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 please.
And he's like, I've never been more... He says something like...
he is like so enamored by his beautiful, lusty, fiery, amazing mate.
Yeah.
And then she does tell him what he was in trouble for. And she's like, you didn't even try to escape the prison and come after me. In the future, I expect you to move heaven and hell and earth to get back to me. And he's like, we will never be separated again.
Yeah, it won't be an issue.
And then apologetic sex where she's like, no.
Yeah, he's trying to be like gentle. And she's like, hey, I haven't changed. I'm not made of glass. And I like the way we fuck. I don't want to do this make love thing. When you and I are doing this, we are fucking.
She says, you better fuck me properly, Your Grace. You better pull my hair and wrap me in tentacles and tell me I have a perfect, greedy pussy. After you fuck my soul out of my body, then, and only then, you may resume being apologetic. And he's like, but are you sure? Like, are you sure? And she's like, yes. And then she says, power up, then give me those tentacles.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. The end. Great time.
The only important part from the epilogue, just because it's adorable,
okay,
is it's the day of their wedding. And he is like, are there enough flowers?
Yeah.
It needs to be more flowers than Alaric's wedding to Ophelia. More flowers. Okay. Yes, it is more flowers. Perfect. And then he goes up to the room where she is with all of her friends, and he's like up against the wall, and she can feel him through the mate bond.
He's in the walls, was my understanding of this. Looking through a peephole. He's in the walls.
Well, he can't see her.
Oh, okay. He's just listening to her then. Yeah.
And she's like, she's up against the walls, like eavesdropping against them, basically. And he's thinking to himself, I found Tallulah's prim attitude trying, but Verity seemed to enjoy her company. Verity enjoyed my company, though, which didn't speak very well to her taste in companions. I would be forever grateful for it.
Oh. And so then she goes up to the wall and she's like, hey, babe, you gotta go. Like, go eat lunch with your brothers. It's gonna be very soon when we can be back together.
And then he's like, but we have lunch together every day.
You clingy mess. Get out of here.
She's like, well, just you're gonna have to deal with the fact that we're having lunch at the same time. Okay? Same time.
Under the same fucking moon or whatever.
We will have
Theon?
lunch together. We will have lunch together every single day for the rest of our lives. But I really need you to leave now.
And
He
does.
Listener,
The end.
it's so good.
It's so good. Actually, that reminds me, because I was going to say, you know, he respects her wishes and like he leaves. And that was sort of the crux of her issue with him like forcibly taking her into the human realm, she's just like baffled because she's like, he's respected my wishes in every single thing until now.
It was so out of character, and it's simply it's because he was just so emotionally volatile, thinking about his sister being gone and his jealousy over Damon and his fear over her being hurt, and like, buddy, you're gonna have to accept her boundary, like her wishes, even with all of that. That's a you problem, my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he definitely learns that, I think. So anyway, the end.
It
fucking
was just
perfect
so
book.
Fucking good.
I cannot wait to read Invidia.
This is one of my favorite monster series. Like,
same.
Oh God. Every time a new one comes out, I'm like, Colette. Yeah. Oh, so wonderful. All right, Mel, what's your lady love? If you don't have one, I have mine, so I can go.
Please go.
So my lady love is locally made lavender syrup. My local coffee shop makes most of their own syrups in-house, including this lavender syrup that's delicious. And I know that listen, okay? I know. It is not hard to make lavender syrup, okay? I know. I'm aware. I literally have all of the things to make lavender syrup in my house right now. I have roughly 2 pounds of dried lavender and enough sugar to put myself 6 feet under, okay? I know. I got, like, but
I'm not coming for you. Just, just for the record.
Every time, I know I could make it so much cheaper. But listen, I live in the South. It's summer. It's 90. It is right now, right this very second at 9:08 p.m. It is 87 degrees outside. I'm not turning on my fucking stove. Period. Oh my God. So I bought some more lavender syrup from there, and I bought just a bottle of lemonade, sugar-free lemonade. And I've been having lavender lemonades in the afternoon. And my lady love is just a lavender lemonade. It's delicious.
Love it.
And I love it. And
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your lady love?
My lady love is Mario Kart with the kids.
Oh my God, I love that game.
So I have never played in my youth, never at all. Nothing. I was not a video game. And now, up until this point, it's been like fun because I can play with Ember, but it's always been like, something I need to manage a bit because Valor wasn't quite old enough to have the coordination to do it and be happy while doing it and not think she's just like an utter failure no matter what anybody says to her. So we discovered recently.
For her, every track is Rainbow Road. It's okay. At that age.
I mean, truly. Yeah. It's been very, very... Actually, she really likes, I think it's called the Mute track as well. I don't know why she loves it so much, but it's almost like this space age kind of situation. Anyway, so we recently have discovered that we have officially entered the time in our family when all of us can play Mario Kart. And it has been so fun the past couple of days because Michael's been doing Lorcana tournaments and stuff. So I've had the kids at home by myself. And I'm trying to come up with cruise director shit to take them to or whatever. But it's really hot right now as well. And so I needed a few indoor activities. And my God, not only has it been super fun to do in the moment, but tonight at dinner, usually we have to direct the conversation quite a bit or they'll just sit across from each other bickering about bullshit, about nothing, okay? About the well actually and semantics and it's nonsense and it's so frustrating. But tonight I sat there very quietly and I was just listening to them talk about Mario Kart and it was
my God.
So
Mario Kart is bringing your family together in a way that it tears apart other families and friend groups.
That's fair.
I admire that.
So maybe in a few months we'll see about Mario Party. Who knows?
That will be
wild. Is what that'll be.
I can't wait to hear how that goes. All right, listener. Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love being unabashedly a monster fucker.
Yeah. Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love taking those red flags and making the most beautiful outfit out of them. Woo!
Fashion.
Fashion. High fashion.
Bye.
Bye.
Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by Melody Carlisle.
Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, tell all your friends about us, even if they don't read romance.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram @heavingbosoms, on TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult.
Head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter, get our Reading Embrace printable, and check out my audiobooks at heavingbosoms.com. All right, we'll be back next week with more swoons and snark. See you then.